Hello race fans, a big welcome back to the channel, or a welcome in if you're a new viewer. It is Jake Sanderson, aka Snowman Cycling, and on this week's course we're revisiting the ZRL Recon race course that we did last week on Libby Hill, where we managed to get second place against a stacked field. So if you missed that one, make sure you check it out before watching this one. And on this week's episode, we're going to try and go one place better. We're going to try and get the win in the ZRL race itself, ending on Libby Hill. And if you thought last week's episode had drama at the finish, then I can promise you that this week's has just as much, if not more drama at the very end. So make sure you keep watching to find out if we can get the win, even with an absolutely titanic mistake that I make at the very, very end. Believe me when I say I messed up, but is it going to cost me the win? We'll have to wait to find out. So let's jump into this one as we hit the sprint on the first of these 5 laps of Fan Flats in Richmond. So there's going to be 5 times we go around this sprint before we make our way to the Libby Hill finale. And my job for the team today is not going to be going for those sprint points. It's going to be save myself for the very end. I'm going to be going for fastest through the segment and first across the line on Libby Hill at the very end. I actually wasn't very well before this race. In the few days before this race, I didn't look like I was going to race. This is actually our B ZRL team. I dropped out of the A team because I just wasn't sure what my performance was going to be like. And I didn't really want to go for any sprints because I just thought it was best I saved that energy for the very end. So I've got some teammates who are doing a great job at picking up those points for me on these sprints. As we come back around to this sprint, you can see that I'm using my power up, my drafting boost, and I'm still having to put in a burst of energy to stick with this group. So everybody is going really, really hard, trying to scoop up those foul and those FTS points on the front of the group, as my teammate Richard Carter gets the fastest through his segment there, so great job to him. But you can see that this isn't easy. Even if you're not going for those segments, the front group is not going to let anybody have it easy here. So we have to be really, really careful to make sure that we're doing enough to not get dropped and also not use any energy, trying to find the perfect balance if we can. And one thing that I did notice here was that in the Recon race, the sprints were not as hard, obviously because they weren't scored, but the racing between the sprints was a lot harder than this. So I'm having to put in much more energy here on the sprints to stick with the group. But between the sprints, I'm able to recover better and my power is lower. So I'm hoping that that's going to come in useful later on. As we come back around to this next sprint here, it is proper amateur hour as my companion app doesn't work and I helplessly flail around with the mouse cursor trying to get it to hover over the power up, which has got to be not particularly efficient use of energy as you're about to approach the sprint. So I'm going to blame that for a loss of at least 10 to 15 watts there, as I eventually managed to hit the power up, get it to deploy as we hit this sprint. And I think mainly out of shame and embarrassment, I'm just trying to keep my head down here and not let the gaps open up. But never fear, because my teammate Silas manages to come through and get 7th fastest through the segment points. So he does the job for me there. Great work, Silas. As I manage to shamelessly ride off his coattails and the rest of my teammates and save my energy for later on when we're going to need it at the base of the climb. And that's 3 of these 5 sprints done. We've got another one after that, so there's going to be 6 sprints in total. So we're halfway through the sprints. Doesn't feel like that, feels a lot harder than that, but I have to break these races down when I'm in them. If I think about what's left to come whilst it's happening, it can often be too much and it can sort of sap your energy or sap your legs because you're worried about later on. I break races down into which difficulty's next, and I only worry about trying to survive that next difficulty. And as long as I'm still in the pack and I survive that difficulty, that's all that counts. And then I just worry about concentrating and surviving the next difficulty. So you just break races down into those smaller chunks. You don't think about winning a race in the first kilometre. You only worry about that when you're in a position to do so. And as we come back around again for this sprint, the pace is not letting up. I was hoping by now that the times would be a bit slower by lap 4, but they're not really coming down. As we have a look at the sprint times, when it comes back around, we can see that lap 4 was actually the second fastest lap after the first one with the biggest group. So people are definitely not letting up at this point. I was really hoping that, like me, on a regular basis, they have tired themselves out already and have to go for an afternoon nap. Unfortunately, that's just not going to be the case today. But thankfully, we've only got one more of these horrible Richmond sprints on the agenda to get through, which is great news for me. Probably not as great news for me as those that actually bothered to sprint through the segment, but still, regardless, I'm happy enough to see the back of this one. But don't make the mistake of thinking they're going to let us go easy because this is the 5th one. No, everybody is still going to give it their all to try and pick up those points. So again, I'm just going to do enough to close the gaps, sit in there, let my teammates do the dirty work for me. As usual, that is something of a specialty of mine, letting other people do the hard work for me. But as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that means that the pressure is really going to be on me at the end to get a result and pick up some points. Otherwise, I might as well be standing on the side of the road cheering them on. So that means we're done with these laps of fan flats and we're on our way now to the Broad Street Sprint, the last sprint before Libby Hill itself. And before we get there, I just want to say a massive thank you to our recent and old subscribers and viewers on the channel. Your likes, comments, and especially subscribes make a huge difference to the channel and the way it's promoted by YouTube. But we're not done yet. I need your help to get me to my long-term goal of 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which will enable me to unlock a load of features that I don't currently have access to as a small content creator. We're currently at just under 700, so help me, help the channel. Please smash that like, comment, and especially subscribe button and help me get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. I'm hoping to get there in the next couple of months and I'm going to try and keep giving updates on the channel until we get there. But anyway, let's get back to business. Let's get back to the main event. As we can see that I do just enough to roll through this sprint, doing the bare minimum. I can see the gaps opening up a little bit in front of me there, so I deploy my drafting boost and make sure that I just surge enough to get into that group, into the top 20 as we're into the final 5k. And from here on out, all of our focus, all of our attention is going to be on the end game of Libby Hill. But first, we need to address this mess. You've heard of a bike swap. Have you ever heard of a jersey swap? When you think that there's a chance of a stage win and then you remember the UCI rules about having to have your jersey done up correctly. Well, that's if you're a pro. Unfortunately for me, I'm an average Joe and I just wanted it to look good on the stream, but the joke's on me, I never look good on the stream anyway. And that was done with as much grace and skill as Chris Froome crashing into a brick wall at 60 kilometers an hour. But the time to worry about that is over because we are nearly at Libby Hill itself. And the thing that I learned from the last time we did this on the recon race was I needed to go earlier. I needed to go from the front and I needed to go really hard from the base of the climb. So that's exactly what my plan is this time. And as we can see, there's a rider who attacks off the front and I'm prepared to do a little bit of the work here to bring him back because that's my only concern, is somebody off the front getting away. If I'm on the front and I launch it from the bottom of Libby Hill, like we're about to do, then we've got a great chance of picking up this win. But only if we're at the front of the race. So this is the point where I decide to go, go, go. I deploy the burrito. What a useless power-up, by the way. My least favourite power-up by far. Tell me below in the comments what your least favourite power-up is, if you think the burrito is useful in any way. But as we launch this, I just get my head down and concentrate on smashing those pedals as hard as I can, trying to get that power-up. I give it a 10 watt per kilo burst at the base of this climb, and we managed to catch the guy who was attacking off the front before very long. And I've already got a gap of a couple of seconds. So at this point, I'm thinking this is really good. All I need to do is keep those riders behind. There's a 35 meter gap, and it's only getting bigger. But this is some huge power. This is really, really hurting. And I've got this on 100% trainer difficulty. And this is where I start to make the mistakes. As you can see here, I'm getting comfortable with the fact that I've got a lead. I've got a DS on my race radio telling me this is fine. Just keep the power up. Don't make any stupid mistakes. And you've got this in the bag. However, the drama is never far away, especially when you are as prone to mistakes as me, and this is where I do it. I totally misgear this climb, and I unclip. I've got a lead of 10 seconds. We're 40 meters from the line. There it is, and I've unclipped. So absolute sheer panic as I think I've thrown away the win, but I managed to just about clip back in, mash the pedals with my feet half clipped in, and crawl over the line just before the other riders manage to close the gap on me. So as we have a look at the replay there, really poor technique from me there. If you're doing that out in the real world on a real road and you unclip like that, it would be game over. There'd be no clipping back in and trying to get going again. I'd have to throw my bike followed by myself over the finish line and hope that I did not get disqualified. And as we can see from that celebration, it's more sheer relief than excitement, as I really did think I was throwing that one away. So again, another poor celebration. Please leave me some celebration ideas in the comments below and I'll try and use them for when I eventually get another win. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson in how to nearly snatch defeat from the jaws of victory Thank you all again for watching, liking, commenting, and especially subscribing. The channel really appreciates your support. There's also Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links in the description below. I look forward to catching you on the next episode. And remember, most importantly, race fast, ride hard, and that you are appreciated.